Building a hillside deck is one way to expand your yard space in a hillside, take advantage of the views in California, the weather, and overall increase your home's property value. I'm Aaron Clitheroe, one of the vice presidents of production here at Alpha Structural, and we were called to this client's house because he had built a concrete deck sitting atop a hillside that had actually collapsed. Since the property is located on a hillside, we wanted to take advantage of the space, so we designed a cantilever deck, which means it attaches to the house and extends out over the hillside, taking advantage of all these breathtaking views. So we came up with a design to maximize his yard space and extend a cantilevered concrete deck structurally reinforced on a pile-supported foundation system to overlook the hillside and take full advantage of the views. With our in-house engineering, we guided this client all the way from the planning phase to the construction. When it comes to hillside homes, we are the experts. So why don't we go take a look and do a walkthrough of the deck we just built. When the client called us out, he actually had a concrete deck sitting right here, but what the problem was with that concrete deck is they had built it as just a 4-inch slab, was like a patio walkway sitting on a very unstable wedge of soil that was also on a slope. So that concrete deck actually failed. It dropped about 6 inches and slid down this hillside. So when I came out here, that was the first line, is what I saw is a concrete deck that had failed. So we had to come up with this design to make sure that he got back more than what he had before, and it is reinforced to not move and not fall. What we have here is a pile supported, structurally reinforced, cantilevered concrete deck. So this concrete deck is about 8 feet wide and about 65 feet long. And it's attached to the house via a foundation system called piles and grade beams. So what we did is we actually installed our foundation for this cantilever deck under the house, which not only supports and underpins the house, but it gives all the structural reinforcement for this cantilever deck to withstand the balance of hanging off of the house 8 feet. Every hillside project starts with a survey and a soils report. And what a survey does is it maps out the boundary lines of the property, and it also gives us the contours and the terrain of the hillside so that we know what we can and can't build. We need to know if there's any local easements on the property, any setbacks that we need to adhere to from a planning perspective. So the deck gets designed according to what the survey and the boundary lines will allow you to do. The soils report goes even further. The soils report is going to dictate where to build your foundations, how deep you have to build your foundations, and where suitable depth to bedrock is, and taking into account the steepness of the slope, seismic factors, any ancient landslides, creep, movement of the hillside. Once the plans have been finalized and approved by the city, it's time to break ground on construction. And what we had to do here is we had to support this deck on piles that were deep, 20 feet deep, into this adjacent hillside. So how we would design this was actually pretty crafty. We put the piles underneath the house, and these go intermittently 20 feet deep into the surface, into the bearing bedrock. So we kind of killed two birds with one stone on this project. We underpinned the house, which means we gave it its structural reinforcement as it should if it was built in today's building codes. And then we attached a steel frame deck to the concrete piles. And now we have a cantilevered concrete deck that is supporting the house and giving this client quite a bit more of yard space. When building in the hillsides, access is usually limited. We don't have the benefit of bringing in heavy machinery, drill rigs, skip loaders to move dirt on most hillside projects. So a lot of the stuff we do in the hills requires hand digging, hand excavation, moving things by hand with wheelbarrows, up slopes, conveyor belts, you name it. We keep a tight crew and we make sure that all of our safety protocols are intact when we are digging these piles, because we're sending men down a hole 20 feet deep, sometimes 30, 40 feet deep. So we have to shore these piles and make sure we get the depths accurate and approved by a soils engineer to make sure that this foundation system is fixated deep into the bedrock per their approved plans by the city and the soils engineers. Once the excavation is done, we're ready to start installing rebar. So the rebar is very thick structural reinforced steel that is going to go down into that pile cage, and it's also going to go horizontally into that grade beam, creating one continuous foundation system. So once the piles are excavated, the grade beam is excavated, and the rebar is installed, we are ready to pour concrete. Concrete truck pulls up and we pour those piles. Once the concrete is poured, we are going to then move over to the cantilever deck portion of this job. So these cantilever decks are interesting because it is literally an 8-inch slab that is floating over the hill. So we actually have to form it up from the bottom with heavy timber and bracing so that when we pour this slab, there's no blowouts, it doesn't sink, we keep our same slope proper. And all that rebar is a double mat, top and bottom, structural steel to compensate for the strength that this concrete needs to hold to support this deck long term. Adding a hillside deck like this doesn't only look pleasing, but it adds value to the house. In the city of Los Angeles and the hillsides, it's very hard to get a yard space where you could entertain, have somewhere to sit, take advantage of the views. Because of the hills and the terrain, it's difficult to build. So adding a deck like this not only gives you the pleasure of your family to have this entertainment area out here, it also adds incremental value to the house. At Alpha Structural, we specialize in complex structural engineering from design to build. If you have a hillside home and you need underpinning, you want to expand your yard with a retaining wall, you want to expand your yard and your views with a deck, retrofitting, you name it, we could do it. When it comes to hillside homes, we are your expert. If you have a hillside home project, feel free to give us a call. So that pretty much concludes our hillside deck build. If you enjoyed watching, like and subscribe.